People still think that patience is a virtue. Yes. You said you love that too. They don't give a F about you. Yes. You may find out they don't have the patience. People still think that patience is a virtue. Patience is not virtuous at first. Patience comes as a result of the skills that you are taught and what you learn in the process of learning about how this thing works, how you do this thing, how this thing is done, and how you do this thing that is to be done. You see what I'm saying? And so, as long as you're with a patient teacher who has the patience for your failures that are strategic, that come with learning. Some failures are strategic. Some failures are just what happens maybe if you aren't trying hard enough, you know. But if they have the energy and patience and the time for your failures, and they know where you're going to fail, the reason you're going to fail, how you're going to fail, where you may fail, stuff like that. And they develop the energy for that, and they understand it. Their capacity, patience is defined as the capacity to be able to tolerate or accept delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. In failure, there is a delay. The delay in the progression of how fast you are learning this lesson, right? And so if the teacher doesn't have the patience or the capacity to be able to tolerate or accept delay, trouble, or suffering without being angry or upset, capacity being defined as the maximum amount that something can contain. If that teacher's patience, if that teacher's capacity is not great, then they may not have the ability to be patient for your failures. And so that often triggers that's no excuse. That's no excuse. You are correct, Golden Tool Group. Competent leadership is crucial. But followers don't often have the ability to evaluate if the person who is teaching or leading them is competent, because you haven't been exposed. And especially, you know, somebody said in the comments that it starts with your upbringing. So let me give you some numbers here. And the right amount of people are still, type number 1 in the comments if you're still here. Let me see who I still have in the room. Type number 1 in the comments if you're still here. I'll give you a minute to do that, because I kind of want to do that. I like this. I like these road lectures. I like these road lectures. And I don't see the numbers because there's a notification that I've left across my screen, so I can't see. Okay, I see you're still here. Okay. Somebody said that it starts with your upbringing. So let me give you some numbers, because I was working out some math to really get to the bottom of understanding how crucial it is for children to be taught certain things and cultivated into learning certain things, right? So you have 24 hours in the day. I'll read your comment in a minute, simply, Lily. And thank you so much for still being here. The right people are in the room who, you know, are receptive to this lesson. Instagram is Instagram, so I ain't gonna trip. Low numbers doesn't mean you don't have value in classes. So there's 24 hours in the day. If you divide that into threes, you got 8 for rest, 8 for work or school, and then 8 for it's open. It could be more rest. It could be extracurricular activities. It could be for training at home, which it should be, honestly, you know, and stuff like that, right? So 8, 8, and 8. So assuming that you actually get 8 hours of sleep, assuming that you get 8 hours of work or school, right? Assuming that to be the case, then you have these 8 hours that are left open, right? And so if you take the 8 hours and you put it into how many hours, 8 hours times 365 days in the year, not counting the leap, right? And then you times that by 8, which is the age 0 to 8. 52,560 hours. 52,560 hours of whatever you were exposed to as a child and a teenager. Right? See, sometimes we look at the low number of 18 and say, oh, well, you're not this child anymore, you're an adult, so you are able to do, you are able to learn, you are able to grow, you are able to do more because you're an adult, not under the tutelage or the lack thereof of your parents or the control of your parents. You're free to learn, you're free to do these things. And so I often challenge people's assumptions about what an adult is actually able to learn, because you got to break it down to how much exposure, how much time they've been exposed to a thing. And so if you break those hours down to minutes, there are 60 minutes in an hour, right? So you do the 60 minutes times the 8, right, for 8 hours, times the 365, times the 18, you get 3,165,600 minutes. So I hope you're still with me on this math. 3,165,600 minutes. So keep that in mind when you approach someone and you easily say, that's no excuse for why you can't do. You may not be taking into consideration the culturally cultivated and family shared chronic toxicity within their family that they have been exposed to for 3,165,000 or 55,000, whatever, 600 minutes that they have been exposed to this toxicity over the course of 18 years of their upbringing. And here you are meeting them for 5 minutes, and you automatically say their reasoning, that's no excuse. Just take that into consideration. Because who you are meeting right now is the result. You haven't traveled back into the exposure, the long-term exposure of what they've been going through as a child, what they've been exposed to. Because exposure comes before comprehension. 3,165,000, I think that's the number. Gotta run that shit back again. 60 minutes times 8 hours times 365 days times 18 years. That's the math. And we're not even adding the number of minutes that they are being exposed to at home over the summer, because you're not in school every month of the year. You're not in school every month of the year. So they're exposed to that much trauma. And I think what you have is, in a person saying, that's no excuse, I think what you have is a projection of unrealistic expectations that this person may have for the person that you're saying that's no excuse. It's an unrealistic projection that I expect you as an anatomical adult to be able to understand, comprehend, say that's no excuse, and do the work to do better when you got to walk that back. And when we start going into, and if you're a real teacher, we're not talking about somebody who is just given a certificate. With that certificate comes the title of instructor. Ergo, you're an instructor who understands the way humans learn. That's not the same thing. Not the same thing. And if you begin to understand child development, which is extremely important to understanding how adults are able to learn. When you talk about things like John Bowlby's attachment theory, or you talk about Erik Erikson's psychosocial theories of development, or you're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? or you're even talking about Freud's developmental theories, or Anna Freud's, his daughter's theories of what happens when the ego gets attacked. You know, when you talk about understanding these things, it could help you understand where your adult learner is, because as your body grows, you don't physiologically outgrow those stages. You have to psychologically outgrow those stages. You know, physiologically, your body can grow, but your mind can still be stuck. In every last one of these developmental stages, one of the things that could hurt a person from attempting to learn new things. Let's go to Erik Erikson's psychosocial theories of development, right? And I'm giving you these things. It's not a Mike Brown. It's not a Mike Brown theory. What the fuck? No, right? But if you look at these theories, you've got the trust versus mistrust happens from ages 0 to 18 months, right? Person doesn't know you as mommy or daddy. They're just figuring out who they can trust versus who they can't trust, right? But then you go to the next stage in that, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. When a child is trying to do things and they are failing forward, because it's going to happen, they're going to make a mess, they're going to fail, they're learning stuff, they're learning their environment. And when they are trying, and they are trying with a parent who, let's give them grace, most parents have not been taught the science of child development, right? Okay. When they don't understand the mistakes that the child is making, and they don't have the grace and the ability to be able to help them through those things, and the patient, strike that, the parent is impatient because their capacity to be able to accept or tolerate the delay, the trouble, or the suffering in raising their newborn, their child who is failing forward, when that capacity is not great and they don't have the EPT, the energy, patience, or time for their children, and the child is shamed in their mistakes, that doesn't encourage a child to be autonomous. When that attachment style, go to the attachment styles, John Bowlby's attachment styles. When that attachment style is avoidant or anxious, and they don't feel that they have a secure base with which to go and grow and make more mistakes and fail forward, it creates a level of insecurity within that person that can affect them for years to come, to where they don't want to learn and try new things because they remember the feeling of being shamed. They remember the feeling of how they felt when they tried and the person didn't have patience for them. They remember those things. And so, like I said before, you don't physiologically outgrow these psychological stages of development from Maslow all the way through Erikson and Freud and Bowlby. You don't physiologically outgrow these things. You have to psychologically outgrow. And it's not an outgrowing of your own entirely. That outgrowing of those stages have to be cultivated by people who actually understand what you're going through and have eyes and ears for the symptoms and the behaviors that you're displaying, and the knowledge to understand what these things even mean. And I need to put my glasses on, now I'm about to go blind. You know, and so if your instructor doesn't have the patience for that, if your parents don't have the patience for that, then you don't have your capacity strengthened. And so you end up developing and becoming an impatient person, an impatient parent, an impatient friend, a person that doesn't have the patience for a person giving you their line of reasoning as to why they are the way they are, where they are the way they are, right? What has them being this way? You don't have the patience for that. So since you don't have the patience for that, the easiest thing to say is what other people have said before: that's no excuse. What are your thoughts about what I said? Those who were here for the entire lecture.